Yeah, you just never know how a season will go. I think that's the part we have no control over. You don't know what's going to happen from an injury standpoint or inconsistency of play or any of those things. When you break camp, you have a pretty good idea, and those are those educated guesses that we have to make every single season. But the injury bug has hit us a little bit this year. We've really been blessed to not have a lot of injuries over the last several seasons, and this year it was, we've lost quite a few people. Kyle Chandler obviously going out for the season, Trey Wortham going out for the season. We've had some big injuries that have just affected our play. There's guys that we lost. This year's been surprising of how many people have quit. Like I said, people don't hear these stories, but like I said, they should. We had a lot of really good players quit because they couldn't handle the competition, they couldn't handle the work, and they couldn't handle that grind of what professional football is. And so it's changed quite a bit. And but that's the fun part too. Is like I said, it's like having a beautiful chessboard and building the pieces yourself. We're going to keep building pieces until we have the exact people that we want. I think we were probably about 85%, when we broke camp of guys that we could win a championship with. Injuries have changed, some quitting guys have changed, but we just keep retooling and bringing in guys that we know can help us out and have great attitudes and those things. So, but from a standpoint of team, it's all about the camaraderie, and that's what makes us good at the end of every season is how close our guys get. And so, but we like to be on the road early, and that we go into a town, we eat together, we hang out together, we're in buses together, and so that builds that camaraderie. We get to learn more about each other. Every road trip I learn more and more about some guys that are on the bus, and that's kind of a fun thing is being on a plane and sit next to a guy that maybe I don't know enough about and just talking for 2 hours. It's a beautiful process of just learning the people that are around you. And so, we went for long road trips obviously to start the season, and it's almost crazy. It could almost backfired on us. We we start off going to Houston. That's a long trip in itself, and all that it takes to get there. And it's not like that we have our own planes and all those things. So going through the airports and security and getting on these planes and having big guys sitting in the middle of seats and all those things. It's a grind, and I don't think people realize just how hard it is to travel. I mean, Coach Cisse having to sit next to some big. It's just it's for us it's tiring, for us it's hard. But for the players equally as hard, and so going through that. Then we end up going, out to Oregon, and we're coming back on each of these trips. Then we go to Seattle and come back. And then we have a home game and a big opponent and playing another undefeated team that's a very talented team. And then we go back on the road and go to Michigan. It took a lot out of us. I really know that in the Washington game and in the Michigan game, I could see us, running out of gas. And so that'll make me think a little bit about how we do next year's schedule. But I love that process because it really it exposes people. So being on the road and the hard games that we face and all the adversity, it's going to make you do one or two things. You're going to rise to the occasion, or you're going to complain and again not be consistent and make excuses. And so I love that hard part, and love that it exposed some good things and some bad things. And for me, from that standpoint, I love to find that out early because now I can make my adjustments. I can make some changes. I can find some guys that maybe can help us better, maybe even bring back some guys that were in camp that we cut. So all those things are really good for me from a standpoint from the top down. But, like I said, at the end of the day, we've got a really good football team. We're younger than we've been in the past. And I love that part of it as well. We're always going to take a look at who's being cut. That's always an important thing, and but also in that process is why did you get cut? That's also a tough part too. And the one thing that we believe here is that we have the best coaching staff in the country, and no matter even if you were on a team that didn't build as much value, we always feel that we could take somebody from anywhere, put them in our system if they'll buy in, that will make them better. And so it's always good having our whole coaching staff come back because we all truly believe that we can make anybody better. But you also want to get younger as well. There's a reason guys bounce around and get cut and those type of things. And so you got to watch that too, as we really try to follow everything they've done in their career. If they've been on a new team every single year for the last 5 years and they keep getting cut, it's probably there's something more to that story than meets the eye. And so I'd rather bring in a kid that's fresh out of school. He doesn't know any better. He has no bad habits yet. And sometimes it's easier to bring in a younger guy directly out of college. You have a good attitude. you yes or no, sir, and you build relationships with the people around you, that in the event that something changes, we can bring you back. And so I really try to teach them that on day one, because if you come and I got cut and forget you guys and man, you got your favorite and all the dumb things that kids say when they get cut, then we won't bring you back. And so it comes down to really that attitude and effort that we're looking for. And so, you take somebody like Jordan again. We cut him. It was a super sad moment for him. He went home. We stayed in contact with him a little bit, and when a spot opened up, just to see his face on his return, on how much he missed being here, is why we are who we are.
So yeah, so Jordan, he was a young DB, but he brought energy to practice every day that was just unmatched. And like Coach says, man, we bring in more guys than we can keep into camp every year. Everybody knows that's how professional sports work. But up here in Albany, we bring the best of the best. So if I have 6 DBs in camp, you could be for sure that they're probably 6 of the top DBs in the country, and they all know that while they're here. So how you handle your interview process and obviously your cut process is going to determine whether or not you're somebody that we can bring back. And when we cut Jordan, man, he just, he said all the right things. He was somebody that we wanted to keep, but we didn't have enough spots for him. So, like Coach Ware said, when the injury opened up, it was a no brainer to bring him back. So,
Yeah, let's be clear. This is professional football. So, and there's a lot of moving parts. We went into the season not expecting to have Sam. I feel if Sam was to have been in a training camp and they keep three quarterbacks, Sam would have found his way into one of those three spots. So, first going into the offseason, I did not expect to see Sam. So so we've got to go and find the right successor. We brought in some really good kids. We started with an MVP from the other league. We had another really good player in Fred Payton Jr. We had all these guys lined up to be that guy. Now, the trouble with that is as things change, attitudes change, and that's a piece that we're not, we don't have any preparation for when these things happen. So, obviously, the UFL had changed the process of how they were going to enter players into the league. They did a draft instead. Obviously, drafts aren't made for small school players. Drafts are made for guys from Florida State and Miami and again Ohio State. Those guys are going, and so in the draft process, obviously, none of our smaller school guys were picked up, and that meant they weren't going to get a shot to go to training camp. So that left them out in the cold. So again, getting Sam back, it was a little bit into training camp, we get him back. It's business as usual. He jumps in, he does little things. Obviously, Josh had been taking, him and Rob had been taking a lot of the first unit reps. So we were prepared to play and probably would have kept Josh and Rob as our two quarterbacks. But things change. Professional football. Sam comes back. Obviously, Sam's at the top of his game. It's him and I have spent several seasons together. We've built a wonderful relationship on and off the field. It's something that is very comfortable for the both of us. We're going to put in the work together. We know how each other think. We know how each other are going to react to certain things, and we have our eye on the same prize. And so obviously I'm not going to pass that up. So getting him back, but again, you got to remember it also going to hurt the feelings of the guys that are here. So once I sign Sam back, all of a sudden all the social media starts popping up. It's going to hurt the feelings of the people that are here. Obviously, I need to talk to Rob. I need to talk to Josh. Hey, here's the situation. He's back. You go from thinking maybe I have a chance to be a starter to not that I don't have a chance, but unseating Sam's going to be very difficult. So in that process, it changes the attitudes of some of the guys around. Once we went to Sam and Josh, obviously we had whittled down to our two quarterbacks. Literally a day later, I trade Rob to Oregon to help their franchise out. And then Sam gets the call. So I try to get Rob back. They turned me down, which again, they know how I feel about that. Won't ever help them out again because he had not had a meeting, a practice, or anything. Could have gave him back, but whatever. It is what it is. Those are the things that happen at professional football. But now Josh is the starter. And so I've got to go from talking to Josh about the learning potential behind Sam and all of those things to now you're the guy. And so that's on game week of game number one. We're playing a tough opponent in Minnesota, a champion from another league. Our conversation has to quickly change. And that's what I love about Josh. Josh again, all the meetings during the day, the practice, our team meetings, and every single night he wants to jump on a Zoom. And that separates him from anybody else is I saw how he wanted to be great. So you can't, argue the results. You know, in a perfect world, we're going to get Sam to get into a training camp in the UFL in 2027. If that happens, it's probably the last time I see Sam. It's great for the organization. It's great for him and his family. And he will go on and do some things, obviously, in the UFL that'll make our brand look very, very powerful. All those are great. Josh is going to be the future. There is people that have been calling, trying to trade for Josh and all these things. Even his agent called, hey, there's people asking me about a trade. And I said, absolutely not. Josh is our future. I mean, we obviously recruit, character. So it's part of the vetting process is just going through all of your character references and the things that you've done throughout the course of your career. Not to say that we're not a second chance for anybody. We will for the right people, but ultimately we want to bring really good people into the capital region. So personality really does, have something to do with it. I know earlier in my coaching career, you just look for the best players. And it doesn't matter how crazy they were or how rough around the edges they were. You just said, hey, this is a top level player and I'm signing him. But now I realize that that's not the greatest approach. For me, I got to want to be around you. You know what I mean? We spend a lot of time with these guys. I got to want to be around you. So if something rubs me the wrong way or something doesn't sit well with my soul as I'm having all these conversations with you before I sign you, I'll pass, even if you're a really good player, because all it takes is, like they say, one bad apple in a barrel can spoil the whole bunch. That's the same for a football team. You get one guy that it has some influence or he's a very fluent speaker or he, kind of takes on a leadership role and it's negative, it can ruin a lot of things on your football team. So I definitely spend a lot of time talking to these kids before they get here and definitely afterwards because at the end of the day, anybody that's not here for the right reasons or isn't happy that we chose them to be a part of this, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of.
Right away, right away. It's just about like I say, being grateful to do what we do. Understanding that it's like again, it's professional football. It's all about how your approach, how not to be average. Understanding that everything's a process. And continue to build. So we don't have time for excuses. We don't have time for you telling me about what's going on the outside world. It doesn't matter at that point. At the end of the day, we all are a collective and we're trying to get things done. And I just love what I do. I really sincerely just love what I do. Just love building, love teaching, love seeing these guys evolve into great men at the end of the day. In the leadership role, at the end of the day, we want to create great men. Be out here in out here in the communities and doing right. We do so many things. Coach has us involved in the community so much. All that stuff matters. So when the guy gets here and he needs to understand the standard. Especially defensively. But in all, this is who we are. We're a blue collar group. We work hard. We don't ask for anything. We ain't, don't give us nothing. Let's work for it. And if you feel like what do you get? You get handouts. This is the wrong place to come. So yeah, they see that early, and because I worked my tail off to be where I am right now, and I earned every single step. So everybody that walks in this door, you got to know that's the standard.
We load up at our housing and all of us get on a bus and headed to the airport. So you're spending times, shoulder to shoulder with all kinds of different people, whether that's coaches, whether that's players. So again, you get there and go through security. And so you guys are all going through this process together. And again, it takes time. And then you get to go and sit and whether you're eating or just sitting around at a gate waiting for a flight, we all sit together. And so you get to be part of conversations that you don't normally get to be a part of. So there's that process. You get on a plane, you're sitting with different people, you get to the hotel and get checked in and there's different conversations. Then we have meals together. So sitting with different people, like it's not like we have assigned seating. So you're always sitting with different people. So you get to hear what they talk about. I love that. It's, I'm a psychology guy. So you quickly realize who's the clowns, who are the serious people? Who are the quiet ones? Who's the introverts? Who's the extroverts? It's all these things. And then who's talking about crazy stuff? You know what I mean? It's you get a little bit of everything. And that's the fun of it is It's cliche, but we talk about a football family. We spend more time with each other than we do our real families. You know what I mean? So when you're spending that much time together, it by natural just process, you learn a lot about people. You hear their stories, you hear them talk to each other, you be around it and eat and drink and sleep and around each other and all that process. And then you go into arena where you're the most hated people there, where everybody wants to see you lose. And that takes you coming in locked arm in arm, embracing each other, embracing the culture, and then you go out and win games and shut crowds up. It is the funnest thing that you can ever imagine. And so we love the road trips.